Two.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly media briefing with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich and Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer. Thank you for joining us today. And also with us here today is Dr. Keisha Davis, who is the county's health officer, as well as Mr. Sean O'Donnell, who is Program Administrator, Public Health Emergency Preparedness and Response for the Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, is also joining us today. And we have two special guests. We have Brian Orr, who's Senior Planning Specialist for Zero Emissions Vehicles with the Department of Environmental Protection, as well as Jennifer Arnaiz, who is an Administrator with Early Childhood Services within the Division of the Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Members of the media, remember Q&A to raise your hand on the chat right here on the screen. And with that, good afternoon, Mr. County Executive.
Good afternoon, and hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us again today. I want to thank everyone for being here, and this is a day later than usual for my regular briefing. Yesterday, I was joined Governor Wes Moore and a couple of members of the County Council and other guests at the Marriott headquarters in Bethesda. It's good to be available and able to share with the governor some of the success we've had during the past few years. We've put a lot of effort into growing one of our strengths, our life sciences industry. Industry watchdogs have consistently ranked us as one of the top life science hubs in the country. And we were recently moved up to the third biggest in the nation, or third best in the nation. At this week's BioHealth Capital Region Conference in North Bethesda, speakers pointed out that our lab space and housing costs are lower than the other top life sciences regions in the country that are ranked ahead of us. And when we combine that with our talent pool, our proximity to federal agencies that are crucial to life sciences, and our ability to accommodate growth, including improvements to our permitting process, we have a path forward to accelerate life sciences in our county, and that's exactly what we're doing. My goal is to continue making it easier to do business here in the county, whether a company is looking to move here, starting a new venture here, expanding, or staying put. And we have the lowest tax burden on businesses in our area. It's one reason I meet with many of the different types of business leaders throughout the year in order to understand what challenges they face. There are other things other than taxes that get in the way of being successful, and we're trying to make sure that we're taking the barriers down to the greatest extent possible. And just last Friday, I met with 3 Hispanic-owned business owners in Silver Spring and Bethesda to learn from them what kind of obstacles they had to overcome to find success here, but also what kind of experiences they had with our departments, both whether they were positive or negative. Pictures from each of these visits have been posted on my social media pages. This Friday is the start of National Drive Electric Week. Montgomery County has seen a sizable increase in the number of electric vehicles on the road over the last year. 15% of all newly registered cars in the county are electric. We've increased EV registration from 11,000 vehicles in January of 2021 to over 25,000 vehicles as of August. And that's a 150% increase in just over 32 months, and that's pretty good progress. I drive an EV myself. I can tell you that you don't have to sacrifice comfort or power when you're going electric. There are fewer limitations with electric vehicles than we've seen in the past, and I can take a road trip today from New York or to New York on a full charge with the EV I drive, and that wasn't always possible. I had an EV originally. I think I bought my first one around 2013, 2014, where my range was 83 miles. So there were some days when going around the county all day long required me to get a charge. Those days are gone. Our county is embracing the switch to electric, and you can see the increase in available stations now. And you'll see much, much more growth driven by our efforts as well as of those of the EV producers. They realize that if they're going to increase the adoption of electric vehicles, they're going to have to be part of the solution in providing a charging infrastructure that is adequate to meet the needs of EV drivers. Just like you have enough gas stations to handle people who are using gasoline cars, the EV industry needs the same kind of station base. Montgomery County is also making it easier to purchase EVs. Last year, we launched the EV purchasing co-op, and over 1,100 residents so far have joined the co-op and have pledged to go electric. Joining us now is Brian Boer, who is the Senior Planning Specialist for Zero Emission Vehicles. He's going to tell you more about the EV purchasing co-op and its benefits to consumers and local car dealers. So, hey, Brian, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to address everybody here today on this National Drive Electric Week. Reducing your personal transportation emissions is one of the most impactful things that you can do to fight climate change. And you can do this by driving less, by taking public transportation, and if you have to drive an EV if you can. Switching to electric vehicles across our private fleet in the county will allow us to meet 30% of our ambitious greenhouse gas emissions goals. And EVs, each EV has 75% lower greenhouse gas emissions on our local grid compared to a gasoline car. And so there's a lot of really great benefits to you personally by going electric. You can save a lot of money on fuel and maintenance. Depending on how much you drive, you can save up to $10,000 over 5 years compared to a gas car. And you know, this is because EVs have fewer moving parts and they require less regular maintenance. And you also get the convenience of charging at home, which means you can wake up with a full charge every day. You don't have to go to the gas station. And for all of these reasons, the EV market is growing really quickly. You saw the graph that we showed just before. The state has adopted standards that would phase out ICE vehicles by 2035. And in order to meet the county's greenhouse gas emission goals, we actually want to accelerate adoption even beyond that. So, you know, we have about 25,000 electric vehicles on the road in the county today. By 2030, that could be as high as 150,000 or more electric vehicles on the road. So it's coming, and it's going to come very fast. And so what we want to do is help people with this transition. We want to provide information and education about the benefits and about the incentives that are available. From the federal government right now, there's a $7,500 tax credit that you can get on qualifying vehicles. And on top of that, there's another $3,000 from the state of Maryland. So together, that's up to $10,500 on qualifying models. And then beyond that, the county has a program called the Electric Vehicle Purchasing Co-op. And what we do with that is we encourage residents to take the pledge to make their next vehicle electric. And using that purchasing power from county residents, we can talk to our local dealers and encourage them to offer additional savings and additional special offers. So right now we have a website called the EV Purchasing Co-op Dealership Incentives page. And I'll drop a link to that in the chat for everybody. But we have 6 local dealers that are offering additional incentives that you can take advantage of. And those deals are updated each month. Each month, dealerships let us know the kind of offers they have available. So if you're in the market for an EV, that's a great place for you to check to see what kind of savings are available. You can also sign up for our newsletter. We send out a monthly newsletter that lets you know about those deals as well as about events that are coming up. One of those events this weekend is the Poolsville Day Electric Vehicle Showcase. And you know, there'll be dozens of electric vehicles there with volunteers that can answer questions. There'll be informational panels about charging on road trips and charging at home. So if you have questions about EVs, if you're thinking about it, it's a great opportunity. The weather's looking a little iffy, but it's still, the event will go on. We look forward to seeing you out there. And then one last thing I'll just mention is what the county is doing to expand EV charging infrastructure. I mentioned how charging at home is one of the most convenient things that you can do, but that's not an option for all residents at this time, especially residents that live in multifamily buildings. We're working on ways that make it possible for more multifamily buildings to install EV charging, but we're also expanding what's called community charging infrastructure. So that would be charging stations at county properties. There is federal grant funding available over the next 5 years, a lot of money, up to $7.5 billion over the next 5 years across the country to build charging infrastructure. And we're looking to take advantage of that here in the county. We submitted an application earlier this summer to expand charging at parking lots, parking garages, libraries, rec centers, public schools. And we're expecting to hear back this fall, and we'll continue to look for those opportunities to build out the charging infrastructure and make this transition possible for everybody. And yeah, please let me know if you have any questions about EVs and what the county's doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boer. Members of the media, we're going to open it up right now, Q&A regarding this environmental protection topic. Tom, I see your hands up. Is this related to EV?
It is not. It's off topic, so I can wait.
Okay, all right. We'll address the rest of the topics toward the end of this presentation. Anybody else, please raise your hand if you have questions regarding environmental protection and or EV. Any questions regarding this topic? Okay, I guess not. Mr. County Executive, we'll move forward. Mr. Boer, thank you for joining us. You can remain on this call, or you can drop off if you need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for joining in. The Poolsville opportunity is really a great event. You will see a lot of electric vehicles up there. I remember when they just had a few in the early years, and now they have a lot. And so you get an opportunity to see what's actually out there on the horizon. Just, a couple of other little news points on electric vehicles before I move on. We'll be seeing cars that are sub 30,000 and some cars possibly sub 25,000 in the next couple of years. That's going to be a big game changer in terms of EVs. And I will say, since I have this experience of doing this myself, and I, charge my AV, which on the one hand was a cost I didn't have electrically before when I was charging an EV. When I had a gas car, I wasn't charging my EV at home. But now that I'm charging it at home, while it's an additional electric cost, the cost of charging my EV compared to what I would have paid for gasoline to get the equivalent amount of miles actually is a net savings to me. So there are lots of ways this makes a difference. And we also have rules now that will let you, if you're in a single family home, let you put a charging station out in the front, even in the county right of way, dare I say. So we're being more creative about allowing this stuff, pay attention to what's possible, go to Car Free Day and learn a lot more. Switching to EVs alone is not going to be enough to meet our ambitious climate goals. And tomorrow we recognize Car Free Day, an annual event which encourages traveling in ways that are greener than a typical solo commute. Outreach teams will be out tomorrow at 8 metro stations and county transit hubs with prizes, giveaways, and information for those participating. Getting cars off the road and increasing accessibility and equity in our public transportation is one of the reasons why we launched the Ride On Reimagined last year. Montgomery County's Department of Transportation is going to be hosting a virtual open house next Thursday, September 28th at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom to present a first look at the Ride On Reimagined study findings and get community feedback on proposed concept changes to the county's transit network. Ride On Reimagined is part of our work to provide a public transit system that offers a real alternative to cars. Transit that's fast, reliable, and affordable. We've worked closely with WMATA through the Better Bus Initiative to create comprehensive plans that integrate a regional network of transportation systems to help users reach shopping centers and areas where many people work. Improved public transit helps address inequality by increasing transportation access and in turn, opportunities to historically marginalized populations. If we get this right, people right now who have long drives and spend a lot of money on fuel should be able to get access to transit connections that in the long run are much lower costs. Last week, I visited one of the county's family involvement centers, and I read to some kids there and their families during story time. And I'm reading this story about dinosaurs. And of course, my favorite dinosaur is the Tyrannosaurus on the left there. The center is a place for our youngest children to learn through play, child interactions, or activities in which parents and kids are working together. They foster an environment where parents and caregivers are given the tools that enable them to set strong foundations for their children's social and emotional development. It was nice to see the joy and curiosity on the children's faces, and it brought back fond memories from the time when I was a teacher. There are a few things that are as rewarding as a look of amazement when a child discovers something new and begins to wonder, what is that and why is that? So it was nice to see this during the reading. These early childhood efforts make long-term differences in the educational outcomes for our students, and the impacts made at an early age are the most effective interventions in a child's development rather than trying to get them to catch up later. There are studies out there that compare an investment in a 1 or 2-year-old to an investment in a 10-year-old, and there's almost a 10-to-1 greater return on investment in early childhood than there is the later. That makes perfect sense because the longer a child goes without interventions, the less they're able to learn. And getting those interventions in the beginning give them access to the kind of educational material they're exposed to. Access, means number literacy, and it also means literacy in language, the ability to understand what you're reading. Our county has 3 of these centers in Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Silver Spring. And I'm excited about our expansion plans so that more families can benefit from the county's early education initiatives. Every child deserves the best start in life, and with combined efforts of Montgomery County Public Schools, and Montgomery College, we're working diligently to make that a reality for all. Many people have been working on the launch of these centers, including Bibi Otero on my staff, who's a special assistant in the office. She's available for questions if needed, but now I want to welcome Jennifer Renias, I think I got this right, as an administrator for early childhood services in the county's Department of Health and Human Services. And she's here to discuss how many people are being served by the family involvement centers. So you may take it away, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you. The last name is pronounced Arnaiz. We roll the R.
Okay.
So thank you. So yes, as our county executive has spoken, the Family Involvement Center is really a component of our county's early care and education initiative. The initiative is an effort to bring together our public programs, such as the county government, public schools, and Montgomery College. And we provide strategic direction and guidance to our programs, which are focused on early care and education. Through our consensus building, we worked on elevating the need for opportunities that families who are not participating in regulated programs such as licensed childcare or Head Start that they could engage in. And so that is how the Family Involvement Center was birthed. As you know, as he had stated, there are 3 programs through our county. The Family Involvement Center is really a parent-child activity program. The caregiver or parent and the child go together. Much like a formal childcare or pre-K room, our trained parent educators create interactive sessions for children to learn and engage through a play-based curriculum. A unique aspect of our program is that we serve both typical and atypical developing children ages birth to 5. We have a very strong relationship with our early intervention program, the Infants and Toddlers program, which provides socialization for young children birth to 3 who are receiving early intervention services. Our newest site in Silver Spring just opened up earlier this year, and we're open 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 9:30 to 12:30. If you want more information, you can visit our website, on Montgomery County's website, or you can call us at 240-777-GROW.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arnaiz. Members of the media, any questions right now regarding the early childhood services? Q&A, please raise your hand if you have any questions regarding this topic. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Arnaiz, for joining us today. Again, you can remain on the call or you can drop off if you need to go back to work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. County Executive.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was good seeing you out at the program. And you have an amazing staff that's doing this work. So it was a really uplifting experience. The program is an example of the county's commitment to supporting childcare and our families, and I encourage everyone to visit montgomerycounty.gov/CCS to learn more about the county's focus on making childcare more equitable than it's been in the past. I want to move on to a couple more topics. One is the Jackson Lewis report that the school system received last week. from the law firm they selected to investigate the promotion of a principal who had multiple sexual harassment allegations against him. And I have not seen the full report, nor have I been given a formal briefing from any of the MCPS leaders. However, the publicly available summary I read is deeply disturbing all by itself. It appears that several people involved in promoting a principal didn't feel any obligation to follow up on details of the investigation that they were aware of prior to appointing his rise within MCPS. That is highly irresponsible, and it's not appropriate, and it's a risk to school security. But equally upsetting is the disclosure that MCPS promotional process does not have a mechanism to automatically identify whether or not a candidate for promotion or transfer is under investigation, and that anonymous tips are not followed up on and investigated. The teachers who spoke to the media and forced this investigation to actually happen told reporters that they made these complaints to no avail to MCPS. This is not the first instance of reporting possible troubling behavior. The union had provided a number of complaints about more than one staff member previously, which also never got dealt with. Our current superintendent, Dr. McKnight, did not create this problem. I want to be clear about that. It's always convenient to, blame the person who sits there, but this isn't the problem she created. She's inherited it, and I hope that she'll institute the consequences for the people who ignored the seriousness of the problems we're dealing with, as well as implement the changes that are going to be necessary so that nobody has to go through this again. I'm happy to see the county's inspector general has launched 2 investigations to look at this one case, as well as the process in general. And finally, there's some good news on the COVID-19 front in our community. For the first time in more than 6 weeks, our case rate has stopped going up. The percentage of positive cases compared to overall tests is also down across Maryland. Both are encouraging signs that the wave of cases we saw begin late this summer may have peaked. Anytime you're talking about COVID, may is probably the operable word you should use before you reach any conclusion. But it may have peaked, and that would be a good thing. Over the past week, the new COVID vaccines started to arrive in our community. Distribution of these vaccines will be mostly provided through pharmacies and private medical providers, and the county's not going to be the primary provider, except for people who really don't have access to healthcare. So you should contact your medical insurance provider, because they'll help patients identify how to get the vaccine and avoid out-of-pocket costs as much as possible. The insurance is supposed to cover this, but you may want to be sure that you're going about getting the vaccine in the way that the insurance companies will actually provide the coverage. For those of you without medical insurance, there'll be options like Bridge Access program, that only covers adults. And 2 Montgomery County clinics have been given $200,000 of federal money also to help with this. The Community Clinic Inc. and Mobile Medical Care will have extra resources to reach more people with the vaccine than they normally would have. The state's sending us more rapid test kits and face masks. We'll make them available at libraries that have run out of them starting Monday, September 25th. The federal government will begin mailing out COVID test kits if they're requested. Anybody can sign up at covidtests.gov. So if you want some test kits and you want them delivered to your house, go to covidtest.gov. I want to bring in Emergency Preparedness Manager Sean O'Donnell now to share the latest COVID statistics before we take your questions. So, Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Okay, to go through the COVID data, we are looking at a number of different surveillance tools, including our wastewater surveillance, showing continued COVID activity in our wastewater. This has been correlating with the transmission rates we're seeing from reported PCR tests. Our actual transmission rate did come down a little bit over the last week.
So, there was at least one other time during this wavelet when we saw a decrease, but we're hoping that will at least plateau and if not continue to come down. Looking across the entire state, the test positivity with PCR tests, that has been coming down now for about a week. So that's a good indicator that possibly we might be turning the corner. You can see here, I've circled Montgomery County's test positivity. That has come down a little bit. Many places are at least plateaued, if not already coming down. And we're seeing those transmission rates, which are the numbers on the left, the case rates per 100,000. Those in many counties across Maryland have come down just a little bit over the last week. Our hospital numbers have come down a little bit, with our ICU numbers down a little bit and our acute care numbers down a little bit. These are numbers as of today. Apologies, I've got the wrong date in the title. And again, just sharing with you across the entire state, you see that those hospital numbers have come down from 291 total patients across the state last week with a COVID diagnosis down to 250 as of the Tuesday morning report from our state partners. And you can see here, this is a day-by-day graph. The red numbers are ICU numbers and the gray are acute care. And you see that this is across the entire state again, and those numbers have come down a little bit. Again, you can see when we did not show the mortality numbers last week, but here they are for through September, 21 deaths across the state. Last month in August, we saw an uptick in deaths with a COVID diagnosis, and that's likely related to this wave of COVID going through. Again, I know we mentioned this previously. I just wanted to give a slight update on the vaccines.gov. We're seeing lots of locations that have, when you go through this system and you check for where appointments are available, the one thing we want to caution people, sometimes at some of the larger pharmacies, there might be appointments available and they run out of vaccine. The good news is we've heard from lots of people that they have successfully gone to the pharmacies and gotten the new COVID vaccine. So we just encourage people to have a little patience, maybe just call in and make sure that they have the vaccine. But as we go forward, more and more, there should be more and more vaccine available, and they should be able to meet the demand. Additionally, when you use that vaccines.gov to see which of the pharmacies are offering free vaccinations for those who are uninsured or whose insurance don't cover vaccinations, you can see quite a large number across Montgomery County. These aren't all the sites in Montgomery County. I just put in a Rockville zip code. I'm sure if you looked at some of the other zip codes, you'd see more sites pop up. Just to reiterate, there's still a number of places you can go for free testing. We're distributing rapid test kits at our libraries as well as masks. There is free testing that you can find through the CDC website, and we're happy to see that the federal government will be mailing out more free COVID tests. So there's lots of options to get tested and to access the resources. Again, if you're symptomatic, please take a test, especially before you go near other people who may be at greater risk. We can help control the spread. At this time, that's all the surveillance updates we have. I wanted to see if Dr. Davis, our health officer, has any additional updates.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. No, nothing additional from me. I think you covered it all.
Dr. Bridgers, I know you're on the call. Do you have any remarks, or Dr. Stoddard? Dr. Stoddard?
Yeah, I just want to underline something the county executive said about the free test kits that the federal government is offering. In the county right now, we're not sitting on a significant stockpile of test kits. We've pretty much received them and put them out. We are still receiving kits periodically from the state. They're a great supporter of our ongoing efforts. But we are getting to the point now where at libraries, between shipments, we will run out at various libraries at various times. And so as we think about a surge coming, any surge coming in just, even in just people getting sick, not necessarily hospitalizations, if you want to have test kits available to yourself you should order them through the federal government. That will help supplement what we receive from the state and the county. I also want to point out, and I've done this for my parents, if you have if your parents are less computer savvy, you can actually, as long as you have their address and information, you can order directly to their house. It'll be delivered there. You just have to have their basic information about where they live and their name and things like that. So if you have people that you care for, or that who might not order it on themselves, or if you have, students who are at college or other things like that, you can certainly order on their behalf and have it delivered directly to them. Any kit that we bring into the county is a kit that you don't have to go get from the library, and it's available to someone who might need it as well. So just really want to encourage people that, take the time to go in and get your 4 free test kits sent to your house. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stoddard. Okay, members of the media, now we open it up for general questions. Tom Fitzgerald, Fox 5 DC. I know you've been waiting. Thanks for your patience. You're up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, County Executive. I want to return to your comments regarding the MCPS board. There's going to be their first public business meeting today since the release of their summary on Friday. You had issued a statement saying that you had some deeply troubling questions about that. You just elaborated on just now. The superintendent works for the Board of Education. They hire her, but the members of the Board of Education are elected public officials. To a person, they have all declined answering press questions about this. And I'm curious, from your viewpoint, you're a public official who every week answers our questions, whether you like them or not, and whether or not sometimes the public likes your answers or not. Do you have any viewpoint on the continued non-answering of questions about this issue from the Board of Education members?
I mean, I just think it's troubling because, it becomes troubling to everybody else. And I frankly don't think these questions are too hard to answer. Nobody's asking anybody to opine on whether or not somebody's guilty. You can make an argument that, these are allegations and we don't know what the investigation showed. But to do simple things like say, yes, there ought to be an investigation, there ought to be consequences. If we find that people, in the administration, or not say in the school system covered things up or weren't forthcoming, to not express some kind of concern that this isn't out there, or that they've been put in this position, I don't understand. Because I feel they've been in a position where they have to defend something which they don't need to defend. They should say we need an open, healthy inquiry, and no one's going to ask them to assign guilt. I'm not assigning guilt to anybody, but you ought to know what happened, and you ought to know why you weren't given that kind of information. And I don't think it's that hard to say. Like you said, I answer your hard
If
question.
I could just follow up. Some of them aren't so hard.
Some of them are.
If I could just follow, there's been some reporting of late that the county executives across the state of Maryland would like to see a greater ability to deal with schools in their county, which they do not have right now. Are you supportive of that general concept? Because some people have been raising that point in light of what's been going on in the public school system here.
Look, I think there need to be changes, but I want to be careful because I know one of the state senators pushed back and, didn't want this county government coming anywhere near this. I'm not suggesting that the county governments should get involved in what is purely educational policy. It's not our place to talk about curriculums. It's our place to talk about some programming, like an emphasis on early childhood education, because I think we all understand that this is a major issue, and early childhood has been outside the normal parameters of school systems. They do some, but 15 years ago, all-day kindergarten wasn't in the parameter of many school systems. So there are things we ought to have, I think, more role in. The examples I give is, this county has been a kind of poster child for supporting the school system. We provide every year, we do maintenance of effort, except those odd years when there was this major financial catastrophe. But we do maintenance of effort. And when the school system has come in historically and said, we need more money to deal with the achievement gap. The county's typically gone above even maintenance of effort to provide additional funds. We've probably done this more than any other county in the state. But when we fund these programs, sometimes the programs die. They're not successful, they don't work. That's not a bad commentary on the school system. You're trying to solve a problem. There is no patented way to fix some of the challenges that are in education. So some things you do aren't going to work. But when things don't work, no one ever comes and says, so this year we're going to save this much money because we're not funding these programs, and these are the things we'd like to do in place of it. Everything is always presented to us like it's additive. Like this year, we need to do these, we're going to do these things that are going to close the achievement gap. If you look objectively at how successful we've been, we haven't been terribly successful. But that aside, if you're telling me we're going to do these things, it's like, so what happened to the other things you were doing? What happened to the money that you were using to fund those things? So there's kind of a lack of transparency about what works and what doesn't work. And another challenge is they put their budgets out before the county even has data on how much revenue we have. And so they've produced budgets with extraordinary levels of spending that are totally divorced from what the county might realistically have, absent doing what I was forced to do last year, which is propose a tax increase. And if that money hadn't been going to teacher salaries, where it is demonstrably true that we're way behind we're way behind some people, we're going to be substantially behind the District of Columbia, which is our neighbor. And so there's some urgency to that. Absent that, I wouldn't have done it. But on the other hand, putting out big numbers and in capital budgets, saying that you're going to fund, putting out budgets where there's no money in a 6-year capital budget you say you're going to spend in years 5 and 6, which everybody knows is not true. And so on the one hand, you put in a number that you say is going to fit in the 6-year budget, but you have 2 zeros at the end of it. It's also not transparent. And we all know that it's not true. It makes it very difficult to budget. But by them getting out in front and saying, this is our school budget, they're able also to say, if the county doesn't fully fund it, then you're cutting the budget. Well, it's not cutting the budget, it's cutting the proposed budget in the first place. But second, it doesn't give us any room for partnership. I'm a big champion of schools. I have no qualms about funding construction, teacher pay, and programs that work. But to not treat us as partners in this makes this very difficult. And, I'm hoping, and I know some of the other county executives who also have similar inclinations, want to be in a relationship that looks like a partnership, functions like a partnership. If there's a story we need to tell, we'll tell the story. I told people last year when I was raising it about what our challenge was with teacher salaries. And that's why I did what I did. But, it shouldn't be us doing that. They need to be part of this. And right now, it's sort of like we try to manage their expectations. They create expectations in the community that we can't meet. And we've got to get to the point where we don't do that to each other. It's not helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Nicole Asbury, Washington Post. Good afternoon, Nicole.
Hi, County Executive Mark,
Hey.
or County Executive Elrich.
You can actually say Mark. That's kind of cool.
Okay, good. Thanks. Really quick, I know you said you haven't seen the full report, but I wanted to ask, do you think that the full report should be released publicly? For my first question here.
There are elements of personnel issues that do not get released publicly. And so not having seen the report, I don't know whether some of the stuff in there crosses the line of what you're allowed to release and what you're not allowed to release. Obviously, if something's criminal, you can release stuff that is, I guess, that's criminal. But I'm not going to opine how much can be released until I see what it is they actually have. I would expect that if the school administration decides there were people who failed to adequately report what they knew, that we would know who those people are. I'm concerned, because I think there are examples of where things have happened and where people have been promoted upwards, so they're removed from the problem, but not necessarily removed for what they were doing. And I think people have a right to know what folks did and how it's going to be handled. And I sure hope that it doesn't mean that people get promoted rather than sanctioned in some way. But again, without a full report, I don't know who to sanction. I don't know whether it's, I can't judge how bad the situation was if you don't know who knew what, when they knew it. And ultimately, I want to hear their explanations about why they didn't think they needed to tell anybody.
Right. And also as kind of a follow-up, as you mentioned earlier, the county inspector general is going to pick up 2 lines of inquiry. Have you reviewed the state inspector general for education's correspondence yet? Did you see what?
I have not read his. I've only seen what came from RIG.
Oh, okay.
I will say that, one thing that's missing though is investigation of any of the previous complaints. If I read the RIG's letter correctly, it is investigating this instance and then looking at the process. But there is a previous letter that came from the union that the board members know about because a board member told me about it, that singled out, or raised attention to other instances that didn't get investigated, or if they got investigated, nobody knows what the outcomes were. So I would hope that somebody's going to go dig back and see whether there's any validity to any of the earlier claims, or if maybe those people are no longer in the system and it's not worth the effort to try to do that. But if people are still in the system, or if those complaints are valid, I would like to see somebody look into them, and I'm sure the teachers would like to see somebody look into them.
And by those claims, do you mean ones generally of misconduct by several principals or other employees, or just specifically?
I would say the only word I heard used was staff. So I don't know whether it's principals, though I guess informally, I know I have no names, so I can't tell you any names.
Right.
It's just, but it may be principals and maybe other staff. It doesn't matter. It's if somebody raised the complaint, it should have been investigated. If the person raised the complaint, they should be told that we investigated, we didn't find anything, or we investigated, we found something, we're doing something about it.
And
one or the other is the appropriate approach.
One of the things that came out of Richard Henry, the state inspector general's correspondence that was sent to the board yesterday, is he had mentioned, he's referring the matter to the county inspector general because he's worried about, any, undermining of public trust, and he thinks it's best with the county inspector general. He says that's because he had engaged with MCPS about this matter, and that's outlined in the Jackson-Lewis report. Have you heard from any board members further about how the state inspector general for education was engaging with them? Because the way it's written makes it seem a little like they had started inquiring more while Jackson-Lewis was also doing their inquiry.
They may have, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Nicole. Members of the media, any other questions for the county executive and or the officials? Any questions? Raise your hands. No questions? I guess going once, twice. We're done for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you again next time. Stay safe. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Okay, thank you.